I'm Myra, 30 years old, and 2 weeks ago, at my birthday, my mother gave me a birthday gift I will remember for the rest of my life. A gift that came wrapped not in paper, but in humiliation, betrayal, and shocking revelation. Imagine this. 40 guests seated at one of Boston's most luxurious five-star restaurants, the chandeliers reflecting golden light onto tables dressed in crisp white linens, the glitter of crystal glassware and candles flickering atop a cake that seemed too perfect for the chaos about to unfold, all orchestrated by the woman who had spent my entire life making me feel invisible. My mother, Patricia Anderson, grabbing the microphone, her polished nails tapping it lightly, smiling with that insincere sweetness that had defined our relationship for decades, and announcing in a voice both loud enough to pierce the entire room and sharp enough to cut through my chest that I had been adopted as a tax benefit, that I was never truly family, that the 30 years of my life spent trying to belong, trying to be seen, trying to earn even a sliver of her approval were meaningless. My sister Jenna laughing like she had rehearsed this moment for years, her voice echoing cruelly as my father Richard avoided my gaze, his eyes staring blankly at the table as though pretending I didn't exist could erase the truth of the words that had just been spoken. And yet, hidden beneath my designer dress in a small clutch, I carried an envelope from my grandmother, Grace, whose passing 6 months prior had left a void in my life that no one could ever fill. An envelope containing secrets that, once revealed, would turn this orchestrated public humiliation into the undoing of my mother's carefully constructed narrative. And as I sat there, frozen for a moment, my heart hammering, the laughter of my sister mingling with murmurs of shocked guests, I remembered the call I had received 1 month earlier, a call that had changed everything. The almost 8 o'clock buzz from an unknown Boston number on a Thursday night when I was still at my desk at Harrison and Cole Architecture reviewing blueprints for a renovation project that seemed trivial now, and the measured voice of Theodore Whitman, my grandmother's attorney, telling me that there were documents specifically for me left by Grandma Grace, documents that no one else in the family was to know about. And I felt a rush of anticipation, of fear, and of determination as I scheduled a meeting for the next morning, arriving at his office filled with the scent of old leather and expensive mahogany, sitting across from a man whose silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses spoke of decades of meticulous professionalism, and receiving the large cream-colored envelope sealed with wax stamped with her initials, G.A., containing her will, a personal letter, and a smaller sealed envelope meant to be opened only when absolutely necessary. And as I held that envelope in my hands, the weight of secrets pressing against my fingers, I realized that my grandmother, the only family member who had ever made me feel seen, had prepared for this moment long before she passed, had left me tools, evidence, and validation to claim my rightful place in a world that had spent 30 years telling me I had none. And when I read her will, discovering that the Anderson estate, the mansion where I had spent holidays feeling invisible, where Patricia had decorated and maintained as if it belonged to her alone, had been legally left to me, Myra Anderson, by Grandma Grace, witnessed by 3 independent attorneys with video documentation and notarization, my heart nearly stopped, the words on the paper confirming what my soul had always hoped, but my family had denied. And the personal letter explained in heartfelt, elegant handwriting that I was not a stranger, that I was blood, real blood, the granddaughter of Marcus, Grace's firstborn son, and that the smaller envelope contained the proof I would need to be opened only when I was ready. And as I left the office, clutching the envelope to my chest, I felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety, knowing that the knowledge of my grandmother's love and the legal documents she had prepared would be my shield, my weapon, and my validation against a family that had tried to erase me. And I prepared myself for the birthday party that Patricia had sent invitations for, a gathering that had all the appearances of celebration but was, in truth, a trap meant to humiliate me publicly. And I shopped for a dress, choosing an emerald gown to bring out my eyes, something beautiful that made me feel worthy, and confided in my closest friend, Lucas Smith, who advised me to bring everything: the will, the letter, the sealed envelope, for protection, for leverage, for truth. And as I laid them out on my bed the night before the party, I felt the weight of 30 years of betrayal, of exclusion, of silent suffering, and yet also the anticipation of reclaiming my story, my family, and my life. And when I arrived at the Sterling, the grand chandeliers reflecting light onto the pristine white tables, the U-shaped banquet table dominating the room, I was met with 40 guests, some curious, some oblivious to the tension, some who had only attended because they were invited by Patricia to lend the illusion of normalcy. And as Patricia began her speech, introducing me as if I were a character in a story she had written, the words, "Myra isn't our biological daughter," dropped like a bomb into the room, the laughter of Jenna echoing cruelly, the murmurs of shock rippling through the audience, and I felt my fingers brushing against the envelope in my clutch, Grandma Grace's words echoing, "Be brave, my darling girl." And I stood, refusing to cry, refusing to flee, and I let the silence stretch until every eye turned to me. And I revealed the documents, the will, the letter, the smaller envelope, proving that I was Marcus's biological daughter, that Grandma Grace loved me, and that Patricia's cruel story of adoption for tax benefits was a lie. And as I read aloud the will, the letter, and showed the DNA test results and the faded photograph, the room fell into stunned silence. Aunt Helen supporting me, Richard acknowledging the truth of my lineage, Patricia sputtering and fading into desperation, and Jenna dropping her phone, her smile gone as the realization hit. And I continued, calmly, letting everyone see that the estate, the house, the property, all belonged to me by bloodline, that the Anderson family's claims were void, that the life I had been denied belonged to me. And in that moment, I claimed not just legal ownership, but my dignity, my belonging, my truth. And when the crowd erupted in applause, it was not for revenge, but for recognition, for the revelation of decades of truth. And over the following weeks, the fallout was immense. Patricia disappearing from social circles, Jenna facing consequences, Richard beginning a slow reconciliation, and I finally walking through the Anderson estate, seeing the rooms where I had once been invisible, feeling the memories, finding photographs of Marcus and me, the childhood we could never share, and deciding to honor Grandma Grace and Marcus by creating the Marcus Anderson Memorial Scholarship Fund for children aging out of foster care, pursuing art, helping Maya and others realize they matter. And as I sat alone in the estate, candles flickering, photographs surrounding me, I realized that belonging starts within, that my worth is inherent, that boundaries protect rather than punish, and that the family who chooses you, who loves you, and who validates you is the one that counts. And that night, as Boston glittered outside the window, I made peace with my past, celebrated the life I had reclaimed, and understood that love, truth, and legacy are not given by those who refuse to see you, but are created and nurtured by those who choose to see and honor you. And in that moment, I knew I was finally home. I was finally whole, and I could walk forward without fear, without apology, owning my identity, my inheritance, my life. And the knowledge that my grandmother had, with foresight and love, ensured that I would never be invisible again. And as I lit the candles, held the photograph of Marcus and me, and reflected on 30 years of pain, exclusion, and discovery, I understood that the greatest gift she had left me was not the estate or the wealth, but the truth, the courage, and the certainty that I belonged, that my blood mattered, that my story mattered, and that even in the face of cruelty, deceit, and manipulation, integrity, dignity, and love could prevail. And in that quiet, candlelit room, surrounded by images of the family I truly belonged to, both past and present, I finally, deeply, completely felt the weight lift from my shoulders. Tears streaming not from grief, but from release, joy, and recognition. And I knew that the path ahead, though uncertain, would be guided by the principles my grandmother had instilled,
the love Marcus had left behind, the courage I had discovered within myself, and the new family I had chosen through respect, truth, and shared humanity. And with that, I closed the envelope, kept it safe, and looked out the window at Boston, sparkling under the winter night sky, feeling for the first time that I was truly seen, truly valued, and truly free. And as I whispered a quiet thank you to Grace and Marcus, the candles flickering like tiny heartbeats, I smiled, ready to face everything ahead, with love, with courage, and with the unshakable knowledge that I belonged, that I was worthy, and that no one could ever take that away from me.